episode of Big Talk from the Little House. Today I'm with a dear friend of mine, Pat Sullivan. How you doing today, Pat?
Doing well. Gonna be better.
Pat and I, funny story how Pat and I met. A couple years ago, I was, my other business, I was applying, I put an application out for some help, wanted power washing, window cleaning, just, general contracting services like carpentry. And a whole bunch of people always apply, and a whole bunch of people, usually come for an interview. Actually, I should say a bunch of people apply, and very few actually show up. There's a lot of tire kickers in this business. Who want jobs. So anyway, Pat was one of the guys that applied for the position. So on the phone, he represented himself really well, and I was like, all right, come on in. You're a guy that I can at least talk to and understand. So that's half the battle. And so Pat shows up, and I'm like, oh man, this guy's too old. This guy's too old. So he walks over to the backyard. I'm like, look, honestly, I said, I just want to tell you. Actually, I even told him on the phone. I said, look, you're too old for this. I said, how old are you? And he says, oh, I'm 55. And I said, when was your birthday? And when was your birthday?
Day before Christmas.
Okay, so I'm Pat's older brother by August, September, 3 months, about 3 months.
A million days.
So I start busting his chops. I said, Pat, you're too old for this job. He's like, no, give me a shot. I'll come down and come meet you anyway. So I'm like, okay, Pat, come on down. So he gets out of the car, and I'm like, all right, I got to admit, this guy looks like he's more like he's 40, maybe even 38 physically. And he can keep up with me, which is saying a lot. And so we sit down. About 15, not even 15, I'd say about 7 minutes into the conversation, I look over at Pat and I say, hey, Pat, you're probably not going to get this job. But I said, we're definitely going to be friends, right? Right. And here we are years later. And actually, Pat ended up taking that job. He says, I'll work for free, he says to me. I'll work for free. Let me just come in there and work. And so that one day working for free, ended up staying the whole season and busted his hump like no one had ever seen. For free. Absolutely free. So anyway, full circle, we're back. And one of the things, lots of the things that Pat and I have in common are our age. We married women that were,
significantly
younger than us, almost exactly the same age younger than us. And we both have 2 kids, and we have a dog, and we both are at this stage in our lives where there's some of the bigger questions that get to come in and kind of anecdotally, how to do that. So today's little pop in and conversations with a friend will dictate such that. So this morning I was on a hike, and I just want to make mention of this. I'm at the point where you have young children, maybe you have young children, maybe you have a job, maybe you have a partner, maybe you have a health issue, but there's things that pull at you all the time. Pull. And when you get to be, I guess, this particular perspective, whatever this is, mid-50s, married, young kids, trying to do your best to hold it down, you have to take time out to kind of check in with yourself. So I was feeling that this morning. Came off of a 3-week chest cold. It turned out it was the flu. Flu's no joke. Worse than COVID, as far as I'm concerned. But it
COVID-13.
COVID-13. But it turned out to be, a lesson. And I told Pat, I said, shit, Pat, I learned a lot on this little episode. I learned about myself physically. I learned about the people that are around me who may or may not be taking care of you. I learned a lot about, perception. I learned a lot about, just stuff. And now that I'm feeling better, my dog with his big sad eyes always looks at me like, when are we going for a walk? And so I said, today's the day. We're going to go. And so we went over to this park today, and it's a local park. It's a super Connecticut treasure. And we went on a hike. It was just me and him, and walking through the woods, and I started to check in. I just started to check in with myself. I'm like, all right, what's important? Where are my thoughts at? What am I doing here? And the more that the needs of, I want this now, I got to go there, or I got to pay that bill, or whatever, just kind of fell off my shoulders. And I through breathing and walking, just was able to be like, whoa, there I am. And I opened up a dialogue, and I just, that dialogue it's a rhetorical dialogue. It could be whatever it is for you or whoever when they decide to tap in. But I think the point I'm trying to make this morning is we have to remember, I have to remind myself to pull off the track of the doing and, the ambitious pursuits of self-support. I mean, much past that, it starts to become mind chatter, and you got to check in with the bigger picture.
And you did that.
And I did that today. And I'm here to say, I'm advocating for taking yourself off your own track and getting somewhere, where you can think clearly, so you can get a better idea of what it is that you want to do. Pat, how do you feel about that? How do you feel about that?
I love it. I love it. I think you've been doing that.
Talk into the microphone, please.
I think you've been doing this since I met you. I feel like you were a very spiritual person. So to say that you first did it today, and maybe not the first time you did it today, but that you felt like you had connected, I feel like you've been connected since I met you. You're deep. So I think it was good to hear that you had that awakening during your hike, because I've been hiking now for a little more than 2 years, and it works for me. Being in the woods, being outside, being by yourself, man, that's where it's at. It's not about being alone. It's just about getting yourself together, getting your mind straight. Like you were saying, how some things kind of bother you. I don't let anything try to bother me. My wife would probably think differently.
Yeah.
But man, I seem to go with the flow. As you know, I was in the restaurant business for many, many years, and that's a tough racket. And my first time leaving the business was working with you, power washer, and that is manual labor. It's not the most difficult, but it's not easy, and it's still easier than being a chef. It's still easier than being in the restaurant business.
I find that the manual labor part of it, which I don't know if stuck in, or I designed it that way, or what you want to call it, but it has a way of creating a scenario that you have a task or a project, like washing your car, for instance. It's like it starts off dirty, it's got garbage in it, needs to be vacuumed, it's muddy, then you wash it, you go through the process, you take out the garbage, you vacuum it, you armor all the dashboard, the tires, whatever. And then when you're done with that project, maybe if you do it right, 2.5 hours, 3 hours later, you look at the car and you have this sense of
big time
accomplishment, like you've done something.
Similar to culinary.
And
similar
I would
in that
imagine
aspect.
it's like when you're cooking a meal, right? Like you start off with just a steak and an egg and a bag of flour, and then you turn it into something. And I think as I get older, I start to see that I've come this far, and I have maybe this much far to go. I'm definitely over the hump. I think midlife is like 40s. Or, late 30s.
Yeah.
So
I think it hit me last year, I think.
So, with that being said, there's a lot of challenges going on right now as far as, just different aspects of my life right now are starting to really kind of like, hey, look at it this way, look at it this way. And I think when I get together with people like Pat, who are my peers, right? We're both similar in the fact that, our families are, very similar in our trajectories, and, seeking more deeper meanings without, having to fall down a degree in Nietzscheism or some type of overthinking heady direction, because it always seems to come back to the simple pleasures. It comes back to, the sound of a stream, or, the way the sunlight comes through the woods when you're hiking. That dawned on me today about, just how light reflects off of other objects. That in itself can be super profound. That's why I play didgeridoo. It's, being able to focus on, a unitary, just one focus, whether it's your breath or a vision or a sound. And those things can be instrumental in cracking the static that continuously runs in our minds and our intellects. And I think that's where people get sideways, is they they're chasing things, like the dream or whatever, just supporting something to what end, how far do you gotta go to realize, okay, that's enough. We're over manipulating one particular aspect of life. And I think ultimately, my kids are always like, I'll hear like, well, teach your kids well, or what do you want to teach your kids? What's the most important thing that you could show your kids? And, honestly, I have to be completely honest when I say the number one thing that I want for my kids is to be happy, because it's like, yeah, they're playing sports. Yeah, he's, we want him to do well in school, and he's competitive
Sure.
and playing sports. But I don't think that I feel our trajectory is the things that you can learn from competitive sports, for instance, is you have teamwork, you have beating an obstacle that you didn't think you could overcome, pushing yourself farther than you thought you could go. Like if your lungs are screaming, I can't go any further, but then you actually push through it and you're like, you're winded, but you recover that much quicker. And then the next time you're even stronger. Same thing like with training muscles.
Sure.
You lift and it hurts. I hate lifting. You were saying it out in the garden. We were just chatting about your buddy who says he hates hiking.
Yeah.
Remember?
Yeah.
Tell me that story again. Tell me about that guy with the guy
Well, he's a
who hates.
professional hiker. I met him on the Appalachian Trail, and he's a thru hiker, and he loves it. His trail name is Comfort because he had all the amenities of the trail. He could make his French press coffee. He had a chair out there, which is a rarity, and he was always there for other people too. He always had things to help other people out and make it somewhat comfortable for them if he could, whether it was just giving him a cup of coffee or letting them sit in his chair, which is a rarity. But he was saying how, the hiking aspect of hiking sucks. It's the people that he really enjoys being around, and being in the woods and the solitude.
I would imagine when you're hiking, because I'm a casual hiker, you're a hardcore hiker, but I would imagine, tell me if I'm wrong, just that, that zone, would you call it a zone that you
Sure.
get in when you're hiking? Where
Sure.
like when you're playing, I don't know, a marathon runner will get into the zone where like after the 7th mile, I dropped in, you'll hear him talk about, and then it's just like it's like this repetitive thing. So maybe there's part of the
Sure.
hiking is the zone that you get into. And then the second thing I would imagine, just from my little day hikes, like the one I went on this morning, is it really opens up to like the ability to have deep reflection, like beyond what the chattering mind is
100%.
telling you what's
100%.
going on.
100%.
Like
You were just saying a minute ago about the glare of the sun coming through the woods, the glare of this. And,
Yeah.
It could be the trickle of a river, and not to sound so earthy crunchy, because, we are a little bit.
Earthy crunchy's okay, but if you're I think genuine is nice.
Yeah. Yeah.
Whatever.
But yeah, I love being out there. Love doing my own thing and taking full perspective and acceptance of what's out there,
Full circle with the reason why I started to bring up the competitive sports thing being something I want my kids to engage in. And it dawned on me this morning as well, because the competition in the beginning is to learn how to overcome an exterior foe. So whether it's, the team next door or if it's a weight class, if you're a weightlifter, you want to break 200 pounds, or if it's you against the other tennis player one-on-one, whatever, there's this exterior perception that there's something we can beat. And I think that the training that comes up that you need to do to prepare for that next level success comes in discipline and getting up each and every morning and repeating something, whether it's lifting or hiking or eating correctly or getting a good night's sleep or
Sure.
drinking the water. There's discipline that leads up to getting the victory, moving yourself forward. This is where, for me, it started to, obviously, I don't know if this is obvious for most people, but the true opponent that all of us are facing is our own perception. And if we can use the same techniques that we're using to train to get healthier, to get stronger, to do, to beat, other teams supposedly, and turn it in on ourselves, because our brains will start to,
That's deep.
create a picture for ourselves. It's a playing field that we're all
deep
part
right
of.
there.
Like my father's father told me it was successful to have money in the bank when you die and all this property. And then another, maybe Ram Dass taught his kids, well, it's to be meditating in a field of being levitating over your blanket. Maybe it's somewhere in the middle. I would assume it's somewhere in the middle. But I think ultimately, if you can use that perseverance, to train hard, to bring yourself up to the next level, to beat that, proverbial foe outside yourself and turn it in on yourself. And I think here's where it comes down to for me.
Here we go.
Here it is. The opponent is ourselves, and the object what's the purpose? Why are we playing this game? Is it to get the ball in the hoop, the ball in the cup? Is it the birdie over the net? What's the point? Knock the pins down. What's the point of the game? And I believe it's to deepen your connection to your understanding of your connection to everything. And it's too woo-woo for a lot of people. It's too mystical.
That's
A
good.
lot of people can't.
I like that.
I can't. I can't. I got to focus on work tomorrow. I don't have time to think about this stuff. But if you slowed your ass down and you got into the woods and you realize how crazy we're all making ourselves with what we think we need to be doing, at least that's the way I'm starting to see this, you know, and we realize we make connection with spirit. Call it God, call it Buddha, call it Allah, call it whatever your personal relationship is with the birther of the universe, to strengthen that connection.
Yeah.
That is the goal of this mission. And then in there comes paying the bills, comes waking up, going to sleep, eating, exercising, finding solace and breaks and thinking about stuff
Right,
that doesn't
right.
really make a difference. So that's what I wanted to say about my morning hike. And it's a hat tip. It's a hat tip to doing the work within yourself. And that's what I'm working on. And a lot of times I'll go quiet and I won't talk to people for a while. Social media has gone off the hook. I mean, how many different people out there trying to tell you how to do it? Eat this, drink this flaxseed oil, take this mullein for your lungs.
And
this
all we're saying
pill.
is get outside. All we're saying is get outside and get some fresh air. Ground yourself. What do you always talk about? Your feet on the ground. What do you call that? When you're
grounding.
Grounding.
Yeah. Well, there's scientific reason for that as well as metaphysical. Scientifically, you're discharging an electromagnetic buildup in the body, and your electricity needs to go somewhere.
Yep.
So when you're barefoot on the ground, the electricity is able to be released.
Just do that, people.
Anti-inflammation.
Just do
alone.
that, people. Once a week. Start off there.
So from my tuning in from Pete D'Onofrio in his 50s, message to self. If I'm able to digitize myself and come back in some 300-year future, and I'm able to listen to us in my 20s, from my 55-year-old self, 6 now, I would say, work on that connection with Source, work on that connection that makes you human, the one that allows you to be here and absorb and appreciate your 5 senses. Gratitude is definitely king. I find if you get into a direction of complaining and finding things wrong with this, and this could be better, and that could be better, and this is horrible, and look what that person did to that person, and it's like
It is a reflection of yourself.
That's happening.
You are pointing the finger at yourself.
But ultimately, we're in charge of where we're choosing to put our perception. And that's it. For today, you go down this rabbit hole forever. Once you start to look at the sun, there's nothing else to talk about except experience. So, hat tip to my brother Pat for coming down again, because it's not always that you have a peer friend that you can kick things around with. And,
it's true.
A lot of people are stuck at different generational levels of their...
not us.
Not us.
Not today.
Yeah, not today. So...
If not us, who?
Thank you, Pat, for coming down and chatting and picking up some of that Blue Star salve. I'm
Incredible.
glad Pat was on the farm for a good, strong year with us, working all the farmers markets.
Easy. Difficult work. Pete's brutal.
Yeah, and I am a slave driver in every sense of the meaning. All right, thank you, folks. Thanks for coming in. We appreciate it. It's another drop in the bucket of Big Talk from the Little House. Stay tuned. If you like us, give us a like on social media. Click and follow. And stay tuned for our next, hopefully, magnanimous conversation. That's all. Signing out.